Good afternoon, everybody. And I find it quite ironic that we're seeing the rain bands of the remnants of Hurricane Michael out there, and I'm getting up speaking before you all. So I'd like to make my hurricane preparedness plug right now that the winds are supposed to get gusty later, at least at the airport, up to 35 knots. And so please batten down the hatches and do take care of yourself if you have to be out and about. Sure I have this right, the green button. There we go. So it's a privilege and an honor to be standing before federal employees who are innovators, who are risk takers, who are bold, and who push boundaries. I take pride in the fact that I'm a fellow federal employee, and also I'm very inspired today listening to all these great talks about what people are doing within the government. It makes me very proud and honored to be to also be a part of a public servant, to be a public servant. As I was introduced, my name is Captain Kristie Twining. I am a NOAA Corps officer. How many people here have heard of the NOAA Corps? All right, a few. That's about right. So the NOAA Corps is the 7th and smallest of the uniformed services. We are under NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, which is the nation's environmental intelligence agency. We are a group of officers, 321 to be precise, who are engineers, we're scientists, we're biologists, we are leaders, and we operate ships and aircraft, a fleet of 16 aircraft, 16 ships and 9 aircraft in NOAA. And we do this for support of NOAA's missions, which are oceans and atmosphere, the fisheries service, certainly weather and hurricanes. And we operate these ships and aircraft as leaders and scientists. And if you could cue up the video, please. This is just a 1-minute video about women in the NOAA Corps, one of the reasons I'm up here talking to you today.
The year was 1972. Folk, rock, and soul music ruled the airwaves. Platform shoes and bell-bottoms defined modern fashion. And technological advances included the pocket calculator and the first video game. President Nixon was elected to a second term, and the Vietnam War continued to cast a dark shadow over the country. In the sciences, the space shuttle program was born. Apollo 17 sent the world the unforgettable blue marble image of Earth, and the NOAA commissioned Officer Corps, a science-based service provided by the newly formed National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, commissioned its first female officer. From then on, through their skill, strength, and expertise, the women of the NOAA Corps have built and shaped a solid foundation for women in service.
So I'm going to talk to you for the next 10 minutes or so a little bit about my personal and professional journey as a NOAA Corps officer, a little bit about being a woman in a predominantly male-dominated field and what that means in terms of innovation, and also just a little bit about my experience as a hurricane hunter. So as the video mentioned, the NOAA Corps really began its start back in the early 1800s with Thomas Jefferson, and he started the U.S. Coast and Geodetic Survey. It was the predecessor to our modern-day NOAA Corps, and we've been around since 1917. Last year, we celebrated our 100 years in service. I work down at the Aircraft Operations Center in Lakeland, Florida. We are an operations center that flies not just hurricane hunters, but we have 9 different aircraft that fly for every single mission under the sun that you can imagine that supports NOAA. We fly for marine mammal observations, protected species. We survey the coast, and actually Commander Waddington is out there right now flying over Panama City and the remnants of Hurricane Michael, collecting critical data for Coast Survey. So the plane I fly is the Gulfstream 4. It is a high-altitude weather surveillance aircraft. It's in the upper left corner there. And on the tail, you can see a very specialized tail Doppler radar. It's not unlike a commercial aircraft, except the instrumentation is highly specialized, and it's specifically meant to help us identify a more accurate track forecast. So as you can see, that's actually the predicted track in the upper right for Hurricane Michael. And as those models put out a track, the NOAA Gulfstream 4 will collect actual data and mix that with some of the simulated data in the models to produce a more accurate forecast track, which is really critical to get people out of harm's way. In the lower right, that is our latest, most recent track around Hurricane Michael, and we fly ahead of and around and above the storm. The P-3 Orion, a lot of people have heard of that aircraft mentioned. It is, it's often in the news as it's the storm penetration aircraft. So it goes actually through the storm and does a figure 4 pattern through the storm. And with the Gulfstream 4, we're more interested in the atmosphere and the synoptic environmental conditions around the storm and in front of the storm. So our track, as you can see on the left, is a little bit different. We release weather instruments all along the track, and each of those instruments sends critical data back to the aircraft. It gets quality controlled on the aircraft, and then we send it up to through satellite to the Hurricane Center, and it gets ingested into the models real time. One of my other jobs is, when I'm not flying, is I manage our aircraft maintenance branch at the Aircraft Operations Center. And I supervise and oversee 25 maintainers and 9 aircraft and the maintenance programs for those aircraft. When I first heard about this opportunity to speak at a bold showcase, I did a little bit of research on just the word bold in general, because I thought it was, at first, since we are the federal government, I thought it was an acronym for something. But so I did a search for acronyms that have bold, and one of the more interesting ones was the Brotherhood of Lost Dogs, and I thought, wouldn't that be cool? But but it is actually the word bold, so it's a great word, and I thought, what better description of a hurricane hunter than bold? The dictionary actually defines bold as showing an ability to take risks, confident and courageous, daring, intrepid, brave, valiant, valorous, fearless, dauntless, audacious, adventurous, heroic, plucky, spirited, confident, assured, and swashbuckling, which is, I'm not even sure I know what that means. Sounds like a pirate term. But certainly hurricane hunters are given that title of being bold, but certainly we're bold, but we do not take uncalculated risks. So here's a video of Hurricane Patricia. This is the P-3 going through the center of the storm. This is 2 years ago. And this was the strongest storm measured by NOAA hurricane aircraft, and it had the lowest barometric pressure ever recorded by an aircraft. That's the definition of bold, in my opinion. maybe a little crazy. So part of my personal journey, I think when I was trying to think of why I'm here and what brought me here and what gave me the confidence to think I could do something like that or just succeed in the way that I have. I'm very, very humbled. But it started out really before I even was a NOAA Corps officer and before I got into the service. I moved to Alaska 2 days after I graduated from college. And I thought it would be a good idea to work on a commercial fishing vessel. So I did that for a while and realized that after that, nothing could be easier or nothing could be harder. And then I went to work on a charter fishing vessel and learned how to fillet 250-pound halibut. I did that for a while, got some more confidence. I got my captain's license to drive maritime vessels, and I lived in a cabin by myself in the winter outside of Anchorage, Alaska. I got a diesel engine mechanic's license, and I learned how to build buildings, and I was a woodworker. So after about 5 years of doing that and sowing my wild oats, my mother said to me, "Don't you think it's about time you get a real job with health insurance?" So I did. I found out about NOAA and the NOAA Corps, and I couldn't imagine a more perfect existence for me. It mixes service and science together and adventure, which is everything that I could possibly dream of. So I got commissioned in the mid-90s in 1990, and actually it was 1999, and almost 20 years ago, and I started out, after my commissioning, I started out going to sea on the NOAA ship Rainier, which is a hydrographic survey vessel. Shortly after that, I was given the opportunity to apply for flight school, which I was accepted and went to fly on aircraft in Alaska. So Alaska seemed to be the common theme. Some of the work that we do in NOAA with our light aircraft is extremely critical. Right whales, the right whale population, and several of the marine mammal surveys and observations are flown from the NOAA Twin Otters. So recently in the news, one of the reasons I think I'm here is that we made history. Lieutenant Commander Waddington, like I mentioned, is out flying the aftermath of Hurricane Michael. We were on a lot of different news outlets, the Today Show. These pictures went viral. I think I Googled myself and I came up with about 879 hits, and I don't even know what happened. So it was very remarkable in the sense that this made history because we didn't even realize that somebody actually pointed it out to us. We're very mission focused and professional, and we have a wonderful team of people that we work with. So it's a good thing, and it's always a good thing to be able to highlight something like this because it's inspiring to others, and we want to always continue to inspire people. And I'm certainly a product of an inspiration in the NOAA Corps. Both Admiral Fields, who is the first black female admiral in any of the services. We have more women, a concentration of women than in any of the other services, and we've got a very diverse workforce. I'm also inspired by this year's Nobel Prize winners. Some also pushing boundaries and making a statement. The first ever female Nobel Prize winner in physics and in chemistry together, and then the first Iraqi Nobel Prize winner and a woman for the Nobel Peace Prize. So again, as an inspiration to young women and boys alike, I consider that part of my civic duty, part of my responsibility, and certainly it's a pleasure and an honor to be able to provide, to be a mentor to these young girls. I don't know if you can see in the upper right corner, but this 8-year-old girl named Marina actually has on her first day of 3rd grade that she wants to be a NOAA pilot. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then this final slide is to reiterate the importance of the team. It's not just about one person. We are strong with one person, but we are powerful in the team. And of course, we're very team focused, and and certainly the crew is of the utmost importance in the mission that I do. And I'll leave you with one last video since I'm out of time, and this is hot off the press. I just got it yesterday. When the P-3 landed at about 9 o'clock in the morning, I went out and looked around the plane and noticed there were lots of missing paint. There were some holes in the leading edge tape, and it had been one of the roughest storms that the crew had ever experienced. Some of them have been flying for 15, 20 years. So it was a very rough storm. And as we watch this, it's about a minute and a half. It's a little boring at the beginning, but it gets exciting at the end. And I do want to point out that I didn't get to edit it. It was so rough at the end that the scientist holding the camera actually dropped the camera out of his hand with the turbulence. So go ahead and play the video. Thank you. And I have two more things to say. I wanted to leave this as a sort of a mantra of a hurricane hunter that you can take home and think about. But be bold, but never go it alone. Stay on course, but never pass up an opportunity to find a safer path through the storm. Take risks, but only when the benefits outweigh the costs. And work as a team and listen to your crew always, as you never know when one of them might save your life. Thank you.